I love true crime. I will watch every serial killer documentary. What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to The Nerdy Narrative. On this channel, I like to share with you about all of the things that I read. I read in a ton of different genres: horror, science fiction, fantasy, classics, nonfiction, literary fiction, comic books, manga. Length doesn't matter. Novella, short stories, novels, series. I just really like to read everything. Today, we're going to hone in on one specific genre. We're going to be in the horror genre. I say horror, but horror has a lot of subgenres. And so the book that I want to review for you today would fall into what I would call the true crime thriller aspect, The GONERS by L Stephenson. This is the first book in the Boatmore Butcher trilogy, and I cannot wait for books 2 and 3. I am ready for them. I was ready for them as soon as I finished The GONERS. This book was so addicting for many reasons. The characters were compelling. I was so emotionally attached to them. I loved them. They felt so real. They were written so authentically. I loved the thrill, the adrenaline rush every time I got to a chapter that was about the serial killer. And then the way it was written, the writing style, it was effortless. It just flowed. I literally cannot find anything wrong with this book at all. I just honestly can't find one negative thing to say about it. The GONERS was published on March 19th, 2021. I picked it up on my Kindle because I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. So if you have a KU subscription, you can pick this one up for free. You will not regret it, but I will tell you, you're going to want to finish it the day that you start it. It's amazing. I did my usual trick of, this is gonna be my night bedtime read. This will be the book that I'm going to have at my bedside table that I'm going to read a couple of chapters of each night before I conk out. That didn't happen. The first night I picked this book up, it woke me up. It jazzed me up. I was absolutely going to stay up and finish this book. Unfortunately, my Kindle battery died and that didn't happen. I love true crime. I will watch every serial killer documentary Netflix puts out, books written about them. I love it. I think it's because it could be real. It could happen. It does happen in real life. And I think that thrill is just very addictive for me. And the way that L Stephenson presented this, how he just alternated chapters between our lovable main character cast, our ensemble group, and then we would get a chapter where we would see the serial killer selecting and getting his next victim. Just the way he laid that out, you're just constantly an ebb and flow of emotion. You get this warm, feel good of the camaraderie of your main characters, and then you have that fear and adrenaline rush when you see what the serial killer is doing. And it was so addictive. I loved it. I love how it was presented. I love how it was written. I feel that telling you it's a book about a serial killer, that is a good enough job of summarizing the plot. I mean, what do serial killers do? They kill people. What do your main characters do? They're trying to find who the serial killer is, right? And let's just jump into the characters. This is a short novel, but the characters, I felt like I knew them. I could picture them. They felt so real to me. Their interactions were very authentic. If you're someone who loves maybe shows like Dennis Leary's Rescue Me, the camaraderie, the friendships of the guys who worked in the firehouses, or Sirens, where it's the guys that work together, they're paramedics and it's a comedy, and then they get their newbie guy that they're training. But if you love shows like that, like Scrubs, where you have People who are first responders, who work together and form that close-knit family, that bond. If you love that sort of stuff, you're going to love this book because this author writes this so well. And then another thing that I really love, one of our ensemble cast is a cop, and she's a lady. What I felt was the most amazing about Officer Kobe is the author doesn't beat you over the head with the fact that she's a female officer. Like, hey, look at me, I wrote this badass female officer, she does all this stuff, and just makes her larger than life. No, she's just a woman who's an officer. It was very normalized. I love that. That's what I like. Putting a female in a position like that is great. You don't have to make her stand out in any particular different way. She's not any special female. She's just a female who wanted to be an officer. The same thing with, there's a same-sex couple, 2 boys. And they weren't, it wasn't, hey, I wrote an LGBTQ relationship. No, it was 2 individuals who had a shared experience and they liked each other for that shared experience. You know, not the fact that, hey, I'm gay and you're gay, we should date. No, it was 2 people who liked something about that other person. And a relationship formed because of that, because they loved something about the other person, not an aspect about their gender. I thought it was just absolutely freaking fantastic. I loved how that was presented. Again, it was normalized. There was no undue attention drawn to it. Nobody in the book cared. They're like, oh, when you meant they took a shine to each other, you meant they really took a shine to each other. Like that. Like it was cute. Like when 2 teenagers like each other and they start kind of dating and they start that awkward dance with one another and the adults are like, oh, it's so cute. That's how it was. Oh man. And just the way that the chapters involving our killer were done, I loved it. And on top of all of that, this book had me crying. Once I was crying because I was very upset. I was very sad at a loss. And then the next thing I know, I'm crying because of a really beautiful moment that a couple of characters share. And it was, I mean, guys, like the 2 things that had me crying are experiences I've never had myself. And this author is over here getting me emotional about something I've never even had happen to me. A beautiful moment, a not so beautiful moment, but moments that occur to most people in the course of their lives. It was wonderful. Not only did I love the story, I love the way this author writes. This is the best thriller true crime story I've read this year. I mean, guys, it really got to me. I loved that thrill. I was addicted to the thrill and the scare and the adrenaline, but it also scared the poop out of me. I finished this book about 10 o'clock last night. I was so stupid. I shouldn't have done it, but I had 15% left. And I know better than to read these types of stories that late at night, right before bed. I know better, but I'm thinking it's the end, it's the last 15%. I know what's going to happen. We're going to get closure, bad guy's going to get caught, this and that and the other. One thing I forgot was, this is a trilogy. What does trilogy mean? There's going to be 3 books. I'm only on book 1. There's a reason there's a book 2. That means either the killer doesn't get caught, we have a copycat killer, or someone else, there was a partnership and they only get one and the partner goes on killing. So I didn't take that into consideration when I read this. And then the other thing I didn't take into consideration, Chris had to go to a resort to oversee or be there to assist with a conversion, something they were doing with their computer systems, that he needed to be there in person. So he had to be there at 10:30. I finished the book. I'm in my reading chair downstairs there's windows that see out into my little courtyard. And I'm in a townhouse, so there's neighbors on either side. And I'm sitting there going into Goodreads giving the Goners a 5-star rating. And all of a sudden I hear this kind of shuffle and thump. And I thought, did I just hear something? I knew that I did because Bandit sat up. He didn't bark. That's what's weird. Normally if something startles him, he barks. He just sat up quietly and he's looking outside. It is dark. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. And I'm thinking, it kind of almost sounded like something slid and fell and landed. Like, shoo, boom. Okay. So I'm like, whatever. Go back to my phone. And then there is another thump. And I'm like, Bandit still doesn't bark. He just stands up. And I'm thinking, what the heck? So I'm like, Chris is still there getting ready to go. And I'm like, babe, is that you making those noises? And he's like, what noises? And I'm like, I hear thumping. And I go and I look out the window and I open the back door. I'm like, Bandit, you want to go check it out? And he's like, he wouldn't go outside, which is so unusual because these dogs, normally they are all about, if they hear something, they want to know what it is. And I'm like, okay, Bandit's scared to go outside. But I'm looking around and I'm like, what is that noise? Well, both of my neighbors had their porch lights on too at this point. Because I turned mine on. I didn't see anything. And I'm like, okay, probably one of my neighbors. So I see neighbor on the right turns their light off. And I'm like, okay, maybe it was them out there. Turn mine off. I am walking to go to the bedroom and I hear another thump. I'm like, oh my gosh. I just already know at this point I'm not going to sleep well because Chris is leaving and I hear these weird noises I've never heard before. Well, he leaves and he had told me when he left, he said, I'm going to take the Jeep because it's parked out front, and when I come back, I'll park in the back and come in the back door so maybe I won't wake you up. I heard all that, but it's not until moments later that I think, I don't know that he took his key to get in the back door. So I texted him, I'm like, hey, did you take your key to get in the back door? And he goes, no, just leave it unlocked. I'm like, Chris, I heard strange noises back there and I just finished a book about a serial killer. He's like, it's fiction. Nobody is going to jump across 5 privacy fences of courtyards or come through the garage to get to you. And I'm like, have you not watched any true crime stories about serial killers or horror movies? Yes, they would. Oh, y'all. I did not sleep well last night. I'm a little tired. To me, that just testifies to the wonderful storytelling ability of an author. L Stephenson just did an amazing job with the story. While it scared the stuffing out of me, I absolutely cannot wait to see what happens in the second book. He is currently working on book 2. I absolutely cannot wait, and I'm going to do my best not to hassle him for status updates. But guys, Kindle Unlimited, if you have that subscription, pick this book up. Give it a read. Just read the first 3 or 4 chapters and tell me if you're not hooked. I bet you will be. But that is going to do it for my little review for The Goners by L Stephenson. I hope you enjoyed it. Are true crime novels, are those the kinds of book that you find interesting? Do they scare you like they scare me because they could be real? They could happen to you? I mean, I'm over here last night in bed when I couldn't sleep thinking, what are the statistics? How many serial killers may be out there that we don't know about because the cops don't want to tell us. They don't want to incite, public panic. Y'all, my mind went places. It really got to me, but in a great way. I love being scared that way when I read these type of books. Let me know in the comments down below if you're that way too. And definitely let me know if you plan to read this. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. Your support for the channel means so much to me and the authors who write these books for us. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.